What makes Kent special?
One of his serious specialties is that he knows everything.
His knowledge is encyclopedic.
Unbelievable.
Kent's unusual.
Kent is not like other people.
Kent always reminded me of George Washington.
That he can do a whole lot of things pretty well.
The thing that's remarkable about Kent is his ability to gather all sorts of people, from the mayor to the governor to the citizen who is whose house is being proposed to be torn down for some inappropriate development. And it's that embracing quality that he has, with good spirit and energy and the passionate love that he has for these matters, that has been able to make him so successful in carrying these crusades.
Kent Barwick has been one of New York's best street fighters for quality of life in New York for over 4 decades. He's one of the most remarkable people that I've ever met to get his point across of how important public life is and saving the public realm is in New York.
He's a terrific, funny, smart, active, relentless fellow when he wants to be.
You almost feel that you don't want to let him down by pursuing your own selfish agenda. He's very low-key, very persuasive. I think he's a lesson to all of the screamers and yellers in the world.
His ability to never answer a question directly is legendary.
He can win an argument, he can seduce. Women like him, men like him, the mayor usually likes him.
I've known Kent Barwick for many, many years. In fact, when I became mayor, I appointed him to be the chairman of the Landmarks Committee. When I think of Kent, I think of someone who understands the need to preserve the old without destroying the new or preventing the new.
You stand in this incredible spot and you look up and you see the old and the new and you see towering figures. And I see Kent as a towering figure.
I was selected as Kent's successor mainly because I'm as tall as he is, probably a little bit taller actually. I have as much hair as he does. I'm almost as long-winded as Kent. And I think the mayor felt no one would notice the difference.
I suspect that Ken's pleasure and my pleasure coincide with the saving of Grand Central, in which we were both involved. The committee was first formed by Jackie Kennedy, Philip Johnson. It was very important. It saved Grand Central from being torn down.
I worked for Kent Barwick in the early 70s when the Municipal Art Society was leading the charge to save Grand Central. And Mrs. Onassis called the office. I answered the phone. She said, "This is Mrs. Onassis. I'd like to speak to Mr. Barwick." And I think, oh, it was just a woman using the name. And I said, "Kent, there's a woman on the phone, says she's Mrs. Onassis. Do you want to talk to her?" And Kent said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Kent was ready for anything, and I heard him on the phone, "You really want to get involved? Well, why don't you join our committee?" And that was really the beginning of how Mrs. Onassis got involved with the Municipal Art Society and saving Grand Central Terminal.
It took so much persistence to rescue it and then bring it back to life. Kent was there at every step of the way and often leading the charge.
The plan was that we would light the front of it. That required Kent to argue some of the owners of the buildings on 42nd Street to let us sit in their balconies with lights. And then we had to get Park Avenue's ramp closed. Then we had to get a fake switch and some fake wires so it all looked like actually there was a lighting moment. The question was whether, if we did it on the night of the opening of the Democratic Convention, would anybody pay any attention to it? And there we were with a mob of reporters, and Jackie with a piece of wood in her hand that wasn't attached to anything, pushed it, the lights went on, that wound up on the front page of the New York Times the next morning. You could advance causes in imaginative, unexpected ways that the public really understood.
And when I moved to New York, this was one of the first places that I visited, and by just walking around in the information booth and the area looking up at the ceiling, I knew I was in New York. I felt like a real New Yorker.
I like it, the Grand Central Station. I love it. It's very nice building for me. I'm from Switzerland. It's exceptional architectural. It's correct. It's very, very nice. We have a station called St Enoch's in Glasgow, where in the 80s it was a style similar to this, and they tore it down and turned it into a shopping mall. Now, 20 odd years later, they're talking of tearing down the shopping mall. So don't let this go, because if you let it go, it'll never come back.
I think it's important to recognize that Kent's involvement with MAS has extended the influence of the organization into the public realm. What was accomplished in Times Square is remarkable because it was assumed by the corporate sector that signage was bad, that commercialization was rampant, and that what Times Square needed was to be cleaned up. And what that meant in architectural terms was a corporate center. And Kent was able to reach out to the public and say, what do you want this city to become?
As long as anybody can remember, at least any of us can remember, this has been the pulsating heart of the city, the front door, the lobby of the world's greatest entertainment district. We're here tonight, a group of people who make their living here, like Ellen, and civic groups that care deeply about New York, to dramatize just how easy it would be to turn the Great White Way into just another 6th Avenue.
I think it would be really sad if the Great White Way became the Great Dark Way. And I think the lights of Broadway reflect the spirit. There's the beginning. The first one went out.
Lights are going out.
The lights are going out now.
Well, Kent did a lot of great things. One of his particularly adorable ones, I think, was when some zoning was going to take out all the lights in Times Square. Kent cooked up the idea that at 7 o'clock one night, with the press all alerted, all the lights went out in Times Square. And so instead of that lovely, vibrant, lighted place, it turned into a pitch black look. And that visual picture is what convinced the city, I'm sure.
The mere fact that I can stand here in Times Square competing with this cacophony and all this activity is itself a tribute to Kent Barwick and all he's done for the city.
This is New York. This is Times Square. This is what it's all about. I'm here from out of state, and this is what I hope to see, and this is why I'm here.
I like the signs, actually. I enjoy it. It's, you know, I don't know, it's unique. You don't find this kind of atmosphere anywhere else.
They came all the way from Auckland, New Zealand to see these signs.
This is Times Square. You've got to keep it like this.
And it's not just about great spaces like this. It's about programs in all of the boroughs and the waterfront. And
that's an important distinction, that it is citywide. It isn't just Manhattan-based, which has made his current activities on the waterfront perfect, because the water is everywhere. The water has made the city. The water is the future of the city in many ways.
I have known Kent forever. I knew him when I was younger even than my kids are now. It was at the South Street Seaport, I think, when it all began, and that's when the seaport was just a gleam in Kent's eye. And it seemed to me it was a great deal about swabbing down the cobblestone.
Kent has fought very hard for waterfront access and to bring back the idea of the water highway and its importance here in New York City.
This is the generation that's rediscovering the importance of access to the water for transportation, for recreation, for just the sheer physical pleasure of looking at the water. We're a water city, and we've forgotten it because of industry.
If the historic preservation movement was a barge, he'd be right there nudging or pushing or pulling or doing what he needs to do to push that concept or that cause in the right direction. Kent taught me how to make a Brooks Brothers shirt last for at least 30 years.
Kent may be still wearing some of his clothing from high school and college for all I know. He also always had one of the greatest seersucker suits that I can recall of all time. He definitely has his own style.
I could never put myself in the same fashionable attire as Kent Barwick.
I don't think being on the cover of GQ will be his next claim to fame.
He's got beautiful shoes. He always wears beautiful shoes, and I always notice them.
Kent is the least fashionable person I have ever seen.
I mean, here, this is fashion.
And only recently,
Ken.
only recently has
Kent's
the
like me.
cuffs been whole. I think of Kent as the most ragged cuffs in New York.
I have the feeling that what he knows about fashion, I taught him, so he can't be very good.
The word that would best describe Ken is integrity.
Eloquence.
Lovable.
Passion.
Optimistic.
Gentleman.
Tireless.
Curious.
Urban imagination.
Ingenious.
Graceful.
He is the best. Period.